we come to Moseley's law. Now, this Moseley's law states that the square root of frequency of a spectral line in an X-ray spectrum is proportional to the square of the atomic number of the element emitting it. So nu is directly proportional to Z square, where nu is the frequency and Z is the atomic number. I will again repeat, the square root, Moseley's law states that the square root of frequency of a spectral line in an X-ray spectrum is proportional to the square of the atomic number of the element emitting it. This is many times asked for 1 mark, 5 mark, five question number 5 का question. तो आप करना. So it is the empirical law, and it is of the characteristic X-ray emitted by the atom. It is true for the characteristic X-ray, and it is important in the sense that it quantitatively justifies the concept of the nuclear model of the atom, with all nearly all positive charge of the atom located in the nucleus, and which is associated on an integer basis with atomic number. So this is the law. So on the x-axis is z, that is the atomic number, and on the y-axis is the square root of the frequency. So it is usually a straight line. So as the square root of the frequency increases, vice versa, on the x-axis, when the atomic number increases, the square root of the frequency also increases. So the square root of the frequency of a spectral line in an X-ray spectrum is proportional to the square of the atomic number of the element emitting it. That is given by Moseley. A lot of applications have been designed on this. This is the formula. Under root of nu, actually it is under root of nu is equal to a into z minus b. So this can be expressed as where a and b are constants depending upon the particular line. This is also known as Moseley's law. So this suggests that there is a gradual increase as we move up the higher up in the periodic table. This number is none other than the number of protons. Today we call it as atomic number. So we say that the elements that are arranged in the periodic table are not based on atomic mass, but or the atomic weight, but it is based on the atomic number. So because of this, a lot many confusions in the periodic table were eliminated. That is one of the main applications. We'll come to that later. So what happens is that Moseley, he found out that the characteristic spectra, X-ray spectra of many elements, they used him as a target material. He used about 38 different elements in his X-ray tube. He measured the wavelengths of these characteristic lines. The spectral lines that were observed were of short wavelength, K series, and long wavelength, L series. K alpha line was found out to be more intense than the K series. Moreover, he observed that the wavelength of K alpha line, it decreased with the increase in atomic number of the element used as the target. So, from the study, he had concluded that the atomic number, he found out that it was the fundamental property of the elements and not the atomic weight. So, he found out the relation between the frequency mu of the X-rays and the atomic number Z of the emitter, and then he plotted the graph. The graph was supposed to be a straight line. So from the Bohr's hydrogen atom also, he found out the small derivation using the Rydberg constant and all, and both were found, Moseley's law and Bohr's theory. They were found in agreement with each other, and this approximately coincided with the Moseley's law. So it reinstated that the Bohr's theory and Moseley's law say that a lot of it can be of the elements characteristics can be said from the atomic number and not from the atomic weight. There are various applications. So major applications I'm listing here. Very important from examination point of view. This is asked many a times for 2.5 marks. So the applications of Moseley's law can be stated as that any discrepancy in the order of the elements in the periodic table It can be removed by Moseley's law by arranging the elements according to the atomic numbers and not according to the atomic weights. Earlier, it was supposed to be arranged on the basis of atomic weight. Then it is also important to perfect the periodic table, and because of this, a lot of new elements were discovered, like mercurium, whose atomic number is 43, selenium, whose atomic number is 61, hafnium, whose atomic number is 72, and rhenium, whose atomic number is 75. According to the Moseley's law, I am again stating it is the atomic number and not the atomic weight of an element which determines its characteristic properties, both physical and chemical. So, the atoms are arranged in the periodic table according to the atomic numbers and not according to the atomic weight. So, the discrepancy was in the order of certain elements from the point of view of their atomic weight. For example, argon came before potassium, cobalt came before nickel, though the atomic mass number of cobalt is 58.9 and atomic mass number of nickel is 58.7, but still cobalt comes before nickel because the atomic number of cobalt is 27 and atomic number of nickel is 28. Similarly, for argon and potassium, the atomic mass number of argon is 40 and atomic mass number of potassium is 39, and argon atomic number is 18 and potassium's atomic number is 19. So argon is coming before mm, potassium. So they have corrected the order of atomic number. Then it also helps in the determination of atomic numbers of rare earths and fixing their positions in the periodic table. And most important is that, like Bohr's model, it also suggests that all the elements are made up of the same building units, but the complexity increases with increase in the atomic number. We have the example of tellurium also and iodine also. Then we come to the next topic, that is detection of X-rays. It is very important to detect X-rays. So X-rays are detected by using some of their properties such as fluorescence, which can be taken on a photographic plate, and which also corresponds to the absorbing power of materials and the ionizing power, etc. So for that, the X-rays can be detected mainly by using the ionizing chamber, in which an inert gas is filled and a very high potential. This is the ionization chamber, and a very high potential between the cathode and anode rays is given. When the X-rays they pass through the gas, uh, secondary emissions are emitted by the gas, consisting of fast-moving electrons, which on collisions with the atoms or molecules break them into positive and negative ions, and this makes the gas conducting. So because it is conducting, an ionization current is there and it is measured as an intensity of X-rays. To this ionizing current is measured in the ionizing chamber. Now if we see the construction, we can see the two slits, a well-defined X-ray. This a well-defined X-ray beam is made to pass through holes in the lid screen S1 and S2, and it enters through window W, made up of thin aluminum foil around a metal tube. This is the metal tube M, which is earth to provide an electric shielding. Can you see this is earth because it is electrically shielded. A long wire anode is held in the tube. So this is an anode and it is shielded in the tube parallel to the axis. So again, this anode is having a axis parallel, and it is away from the central line by another wire connected to the electrometer. The connecting wire wall insulated from the metal tube is surrounded by the earth guard. So this is the earth guard. Yeah, this is the earth guard. To prevent leakage between A and M, the negative source of potential difference is earth, positive being converted to the electrometer. So this is connected to the electrometer. So any current generated in this ionizing chamber can be measured with the electrometer. And the potential difference is maintained high. Okay. Generally, argon or ethyl bromide is used in place of air for better sensitivity. Instead of air, argon or ethyl bromide is used. This is all the description of the ionizing chamber. If you want, you can have a screenshot. I'll wait for 2 seconds. So the absorption power of some standard materials like aluminum are used to determine the quality of X-rays. When a narrow, see, this is the incident X-ray beam, and when it passes to matter, it is partly absorbed and the rest is transmitted. Due to absorption, the intensity it diminishes. So when an X-ray hits a sample, the electromagnetic interaction radiation interacts with the electrons bound in an atom, and that is why partly it gets absorbed and partly it gets scattered and partly it gets transmitted. So this is a small derivation of linear absorption coefficient, and it is directly proportional. As you can see, the rate is directly proportional to the intensity R. Higher the intensity, higher will be the linear absorption coefficient. That is all we do in the ionizing chamber. So it can be deduced that the absorption of X-rays follows the exponential law from this equation. Also, 2-3 things we can find out, that is the mass absorption coefficient. Uh, it is found to be constant and it does not depend on the state of the material. Absorption also depends on the wavelength. Third point, there are absorption edges, and the energy of X-rays absorbed by atoms may be scattered or may excite electrons to higher levels. And transitions of such electrons to lower levels cause emission of radiation in the form of fluorescence. So this is the figure which we were talking about. Some are scattered. When the X-rays are incident, a part of them can scatter, or some have, they come up as fluorescence, or they can come up constitute a current in the form of photoelectrons, or some can get transmitted. So like there is emission spectra, X-ray emission spectra, there is also something known as X-ray absorption spectra. If you can see, this is the figure of the X-ray absorption spectra. So the basic difference between the emission and absorption X-ray spectra, that this X-ray emission spectra is the, I'm sorry, the emission spectra is continuous spectra. While the absorption spectra, we get short absorption edges at different. Can you see these edges? At definite wavelengths to the ejection of electrons from KL shells. So what happens is that in absorption X-ray spectra, we get sharp absorption edges. You have to remember that at definite wavelengths corresponding to the ejection of electrons from KL shells. So when an incident photon having X-ray energies, then they may raise an inner shell electron to an empty shell or eject it from an atom. So on the scale of X-ray energies, the valence shell energies are negligible. So photoionization is most likely result. So with this, the sharp increase in absorption coefficient occurs, and this threshold is called as an absorption edge. So from the graph, we can see that as lambda increases, we'll go to the graph. So as lambda increases, mu also increases, that is absorption coefficient increases rapidly till a point K is reached. a point K is reached, which lambda corresponds to lambda K. Can you see this first peak? So this wavelength is called absorption K absorption limit, or K absorption edge also it's called. So up to this wavelength, the absorption is mainly due to ejection of electrons from the K shell of the absorber. Then what happens? It suddenly falls. So after this, it falls. This occurs because the X-rays of the wavelengths longer than it are not sufficiently energetic to eject the K electrons. So that's why it falls. Then again it rises beyond lambda K. So, and then the absorption increases again, and these absorption edges, you get three peaks, L1, L2 and L3. So these are this we get from the absorption due to the ejection of electrons from the L shell. And there are three close energy levels. It may also be mentioned that we may get five absorbing edges with M, seven with N, and five with O, showing that M shell has five close energy levels, N shell has seven close energy levels, and O shell has five close energy levels, and so on. So the absorption drops off until the photon energy exceeds the next inner shell binding energy, and new edge is observed. At the K edge, for example, the photon energy is capable of ejecting an L or M shell electron. It is, however, the K shell electron is more strongly bound to the nucleus than the L or M shell electron. So these electrons which are held more strongly to the nucleus are more effective in absorbing X-ray photons. So this effect also explains the rapid change in the absorption of the edge and the fall off in the absorption of the energies above each edge. And the wavelengths of the absorbing edges are the characteristic of the element of the absorber. It depends on the absorber, the characteristic of the absorber. And lastly, the absorbing material is relatively opaque to the X-rays of the wavelengths up to a characteristic value and is transparent thereafter. So this is whatever I have been telling, and you can have a screenshot of this. I'll just keep it for 1 minute. Okay. Then we come to a very important question, that is difference between the optical and X-ray spectra. So what is the difference between the optical spectra that we get and the X-ray spectra? So the optical this question is asked many a times in the university examination. So all these 4 points you have to write in this order only, you have to write. So the optical spectra, it arises due to the excitation of electrons from the outer orbit of the atom, while the X-ray spectra, it arises due to the excitation of the electron from the inner closed orbit of the same atom. जो इनरमोस्ट इलेक्ट्रॉन से राइज होता है वो एक्स रे स्पेक्ट्रा होता है, और जो आउटरमोस्ट ऑर्बिट से होता है वो ऑप्टिकल स्पेक्ट्रा होता है. फिर ऑप्टिकल स्पेक्ट्रा शोज पीरियोडिक चेंजेस फ्रॉम एलिमेंट टू एलिमेंट, and the X-ray spectra, they vary smoothly from element to element. Then the third point, the electron from outer shell is merely raised to a higher level and not completely removed in optical spectra. But in X-ray spectra, it arises as a result of complete removal of an electron from an inner shell of an atom. And the outer shell electron, it jumps to the inner shell to fill that shell. That is why the X-ray spectra arises. Then the optical emission spectra are identical to the optical absorption spectra, while the X-ray emission spectra are entirely different from the X-ray absorption spectra. we have been seen, they are so different. They have sharp edges, and emission spectra is consists of discrete lines. So this is also important. You can take a screenshot and memorize this. This can be asked for 2.5 marks. Okay. Then we come to an Auger effect, and this is a non-radiative transition, and this is due to the ionization of core electron, which leaves a vacancy. It is basically a two-step process. This Auger effect is a two-step process in which an atom is excited by absorption of an X-ray, releasing an electron from a deeper shell, preferably a K shell. The hole is then filled by an electron from a higher orbit, maybe L shell, M shell, N shell, and so on, resulting in a release of energy which is used to separate an additional electron. This additional electron is also known as the Auger electron. This process is a radiationless transition, and the electrons ejected by this such radiationless transitions are fat short tracks made by him on the gas of a cloud chamber. The point to emphasize here is that the Auger electron is not because of absorption of a photon given out by an electron when it comes out from a higher energy level to a lower energy level, but it comes directly as a part of readjustment of the atom. Like what happens is, it is also known as internal conversion or auto ionization. This Auger effect is also termed as internal conversion of or auto ionization. So, in many a times, it happens that an atom in a state of single ionization, it may undergo an Auger transition, which leaves in a state of double ionization. So, the electron released in such a transition is given out from the atom and left in the amount of kinetic energy E is given by the E ionization by the E conversion. So, this is also a non-radiative transition. So what happens in this is the upper level electron falls into the vacancy and release energy, which is between few electron, also 50 kilo electron volts. So because of the second electron. So can you see, because this collision, the innermost electron, the core electron is leaving, and the outermost electron is coming and sitting here, and the difference is being given out. So the release of energy is, it is transferred to another electron. So this when this electron is the energy is given out, so this electron from 2s shell might come and sit in this shell, and this is the Auger electron which is emitted. So this is another the Auger effect. So a high speed electron knocks out an inner shell electron from an atom, it leaves a vacancy. So there are two cases. A high speed electron knocks out an inner shell. Suppose this is an inner shell electron and this high speed is coming, and from an atom it leaves a vacancy. So there are two cases possible. In one case, an upper electron drop in to fill the vacancy like this, and it emits a photon. Since for heavy atoms the energy is in the X-ray region, this is called X-ray fluorescence. Or otherwise it can also happen that sometimes the energy is transferred to just an outer electron, ejecting it from an atom. So what क्या होता है कि ये जो एनर्जी ये इधर से अंदर आ जाता है, और ये एनर्जी है ये आउटर इलेक्ट्रॉन को ट्रांसफर करता है, और ये जो इलेक्ट्रॉन एमिट होता है उसे ऑगर इलेक्ट्रॉन बोलते हैं. So the energy is just transformed from one electron to another electron. So this is Auger effect, and this is a non-radiative transition. So the Auger effect is a physical phenomena in which the filling of an inner shell vacancy of an atom is accompanied by the emission of an electron of the same atom. When a core electron is removed, an electron from higher energy level, it may fall into the vacancy, resulting in a release of energy. So, although most of this energy is released in the form of emitted photon, energy can also be transferred to another electron. When it is transferred to another electron, then that ejected electron is called an Auger electron. Remember, जो एक्सरे फ्लोरोसेंस होता है वो हम नहीं बोल रहे, ये एनर्जी जो मिल रही है इन द फॉर्म, if it is given out to another electron, then that electron is known as Auger electron. And this upon ejection, the kinetic energy of the Auger electron, it represents the difference between the energy of the initial electronic transition into the vacancy and ionization energy for the electron shell from which the Auger electron was ejected. Then there is something which is known as Auger electron spectroscopy, and this involves the emission of Auger electrons by bombarding a sample with either X-rays or energetic electrons, and it measures the intensity of Auger electrons that result as a function of the Auger electron energy. This resulting spectra that can be used to determine the identity of emitting atoms and some information about the environment. So this is also known as Auger electron spectroscopy. This is another branch. Then very important applications of X-rays. This is the last topic of this unit, and the use of X-rays in medicine and dentistry has been very important. Then we all know X-ray photographs, they utilize the facts that the portions of the body such as bones and teeth with higher intensity are less transparent to X-rays. So in medicine it is used, dentistry it is used. Then X-rays can be produced with energy sufficient to ionize the atoms making up human tissues. So many a times it is also the X-rays can be used to kill these cells. So this can be done in some types of cancer therapy, in which the radiation is directed against the malignancy. Also, because this is damaging, great care is taken by these physicians to show that the exposure of the rest of the body is kept at absolute minimum. Then, relatively new technique of X-rays in the field of medicine is also known as computerized axial tomography, which is also known as commonly known as CAT scan. It is called computerized axial tomography. So these scans, they are producing cross-sectional picture of the part of the body which is much sharper than the normal X-rays. So because of this, they show intricate organs and body parts superimposed, which are superimposed on another. Then to produce a CAT scan, a narrow beam of X-ray is sent to the region of the part from which we want to have the scan, and many different angles, and a computer is used to reconstruct the cross-sectional picture of that region. So this is nothing but the computerized axial tomography. Then X-rays are used in business also. For example, X-ray pictures of whole engines or engine parts can be taken to look for defects. Then many similar section of pipelines for oil or gas can be examined for cracks or defective welds. Airlines, all of us, you must have seen that airlines also use X-ray detectors to check the baggage of passengers for guns or other illegal objects. Then something recently has come up, that is synchrotron radiation. So what happens is that they are used as particle accelerators. So they are given small increase in energy and they are moved in circular path in accelerator. And the circular rings of magnets keep the particles in circular path. So any object moving in circular path experiences an acceleration towards the center of the circle. So the accelerators, the radiation has to be made very intense. So electrons turn out to be the best particle for use in this machine, which are known as electron synchrotrons. So here also the use of X-rays is primarily done. It is very high intense beam, and this offers use to many scientists. So this is another. This is the same thing. So many there are so many It is used in industry, in medical sciences, in radiotherapy, like it is used to destroy malignant tumors, to also cure skin diseases. Then in industry, they are used to detect any defect in tennis ball or valves or rubber tires or wood. They are also used to study the structure of material like rubber, cellulose, and so on. Then in the field of engineering, they are used to detect cracks in structures, blowholes in metals, welding, molds, and castings. Then in custom departments, this is used. X-rays are commonly used in custom departments to detect banned materials kept in leather cases. And in research, most important, the X-ray diffraction and X-ray photon spectrography. It is primarily tool in qualitative and quantitative analysis in which to study the structure of crystals, arrangement of atoms and molecules, and their behavior on different materials. They are X-rays also used for analyzing the structure of complex organic molecules. They are also used in determining the atomic number and identification of different chemical elements. Especially for knowing the crystal structure, XRD is used, and without doing XRD, the researchers are not moving ahead, because that reinstates that the element is the same that they are trying to make. So that's a sure shot method to know whether X-ray diffraction is a sure shot method to know whether the material they have tried to make is the same material or not. So this is the photograph of first photograph of Roentgen's wife with the ring, and that is how he made his wife to keep her hand, and there is a ring there. That is the photograph. Here we come to the end of the unit X-rays. Thank you.